The day my son called me dead weight, I was standing 3 feet away from him. He didn't know I could hear. The kitchen smelled like burnt coffee and rain drifted softly against the window. My hands trembled around a tray carrying 2 cups. My daughter-in-law laughed, a cold laugh. Then my son said the words that split my heart in half. "She's dead weight, Emily. We can't keep wasting money on her forever." The tray slipped. 1 cup shattered against the tile floor. Silence. My son turned, his face went pale. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. I looked at him, the same boy I had carried through fevers, the same boy I had worked 3 jobs to feed, the same boy whose college tuition had emptied my savings account. His eyes lowered, not from guilt, from annoyance, as if I had interrupted something. "I didn't mean it like that," he said, but I already knew he did. And that wasn't even the worst part, because 3 days later, I discovered they had been secretly planning something far worse than calling me dead weight, something that would leave me homeless at 72 years old and completely alone. My name is Margaret Wilson. I'm 72 years old, a widow, a mother, and apparently a burden. At least, that's what my son Daniel believed. My husband Richard died 6 years earlier after a long battle with cancer. 47 years together, gone, just like that. After his funeral, the house became unbearably quiet. Every room echoed with memories. His reading chair, his tools in the garage, his coffee mug still sitting in the cabinet. I tried living alone, I really did, but loneliness can become its own kind of illness. Daniel suggested I move in with him and his wife. "Mom, you shouldn't be by yourself." Those were his words. I remember crying because I thought I had raised a good man. I sold my small condo, gave up my independence, moved into their home, and for a while, everything seemed fine. Then things started changing. Little things, tiny cuts, the kind you don't notice until you're bleeding. I stopped being mom. I became an inconvenience, a responsibility, an expense. Dinner conversations happened without me. Family photos were taken without me. Vacations were planned without asking if I wanted to come. Sometimes I felt invisible. Sometimes worse, I felt tolerated. Then came the money. "Mom, it's easier if I help manage your finances." Daniel said it casually. Concerned son, helpful son, protective son. I believed him because he was my son. What kind of mother suspects her own child? So I gave him access, and that decision nearly destroyed me. One afternoon, I received a bank notification, a large withdrawal, nearly $15,000. I frowned. I didn't remember making it. When I asked Daniel, he smiled. Just moving funds around. That was all. Moving funds around. Something about it felt wrong, very wrong. But I wanted to trust him. I wanted to believe the little boy I raised was still somewhere inside the man standing before me. I was wrong. A week later, I overheard another conversation. This one froze my blood. I talked to the realtor. Realtor. The word hit me immediately. My heart began racing. Emily lowered her voice. "Will she sign?" Daniel laughed. "She won't even know what she's signing." The room spun. I nearly dropped the laundry basket in my hands. What was I signing? Why was there a realtor involved? And why wasn't I supposed to know? That night, I couldn't sleep. Every shadow in my room felt threatening. Every creak in the hallway sounded dangerous. For the first time in my life, I was afraid of my own son. The next morning, Daniel placed papers in front of me. Just some insurance updates. Insurance? My husband used to handle paperwork. Daniel knew that. He knew I trusted him. I looked at the stack. Something felt off, very off. Then I noticed a line near the bottom, property transfer authorization. My stomach dropped. Property transfer authorization. I looked up. Daniel smiled. Just sign. My hands started shaking. Why? His smile faded. You don't understand this stuff, Mom. Those words hurt more than I expected. You don't understand, as if old age had erased my intelligence, as if wrinkles made me stupid. I didn't sign, and that's when everything changed. Daniel's face hardened. Emily's expression darkened. The masks slipped. For the first time, I saw who they really were. The following weeks became a nightmare. Cold shoulders, whispers, doors closing when I entered rooms, meals forgotten, conversations ending abruptly. Then came the ultimate humiliation, a family barbecue. Friends, neighbors, co-workers, everyone gathered in the backyard. I was carrying a bowl of potato salad when Daniel stood and tapped his glass. I have an announcement. Everyone smiled. Then he looked directly at me. We're finally helping Mom move into assisted living. The bowl nearly slipped from my hands. Assisted living? Nobody had discussed this with me, not once. People started clapping, as if my life had already been decided, as if I wasn't standing right there. I felt my face burn, my throat tighten. Then Daniel added something I will never forget. It's time she stops depending on us. The crowd grew quiet. Several guests exchanged uncomfortable looks, but the damage was done. I had never felt smaller, never felt more discarded. That night, I cried harder than I had cried at Richard's funeral, because death is cruel, but betrayal is personal. I thought the nightmare was over. It wasn't. 2 days later, an envelope arrived. No return address. Inside was a single note. Mrs. Wilson, you should check your property records immediately. My hands went cold. Property records? I drove to the county office the next morning. What I discovered nearly stopped my heart. Someone had filed preliminary paperwork attempting to transfer ownership rights connected to assets still legally tied to me. My signature appeared on multiple documents, except I'd never signed them. Someone had forged my name. I stared at the papers, unable to breathe, unable to think, unable to understand how my own son could do this. Then I noticed something else, a witness signature. Emily, my daughter-in-law. The room spun. I sat down before my legs gave out, but that wasn't even the biggest shock. The clerk looked at me carefully. Ma'am, there's another filing. Another filing? I opened it, and my entire world changed. Daniel had also begun legal inquiries regarding guardianship. Guardianship? He was trying to declare me incapable, mentally unfit, unable to manage my own affairs. He wasn't just taking my money, he was trying to take my life, my freedom, my identity, everything. I sat in my car afterward and cried until my eyes burned. Then I remembered something Richard once told me. If someone mistakes kindness for weakness, let them. I wiped my tears, started the engine, and made a decision. No more crying, no more trusting, no more being their victim. Because there was one thing Daniel didn't know, one thing I had never told him, not because it was secret, because it never mattered. Until now. 20 years earlier, Richard and I invested in a small piece of commercial property. Over decades, that investment exploded in value. The asset was held in a separate trust, a trust Daniel knew nothing about. Its value exceeded $3 million, and I was the sole beneficiary. For years, I never mentioned it. I didn't care about wealth. Family mattered more, or so I thought. Now, it became my shield, my protection, my evidence, and eventually, my revenge. I hired an attorney, the best one I could afford. When I handed him the forged documents, his expression changed immediately. This is serious. Good, because I was done being polite. The investigation moved quickly, much quicker than Daniel expected. Bank records surfaced, transfer requests surfaced, emails surfaced. Then the truth exploded. Daniel had accumulated massive debt, credit cards, failed investments, luxury purchases, private loans. The money wasn't for survival, it was for greed, pure greed. And he saw me as his retirement plan, his personal ATM, his dead weight. The hearing arrived 3 months later. I will never forget that courtroom. Daniel sat across from me, avoiding eye contact. Emily looked nervous. For the first time in years, I looked calm. The evidence spoke for itself. Forged signatures, unauthorized withdrawals, guardianship manipulation, fraudulent filings. The judge's face grew darker with every document. Then came the moment that changed everything. My attorney played an audio recording, the kitchen recording, the one where Daniel called me dead weight. The room fell silent. Every word echoed, crystal clear. She's dead weight. Daniel looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him, but the judge wasn't finished listening. The recording continued. Then came the line, "She won't even know what she's signing." Emily closed her eyes. The judge removed his glasses and stared directly at them. I had waited months for that moment. It was worth every second. The ruling arrived shortly afterward. The fraudulent filings were voided, the financial abuse was documented, protective orders were issued, restitution was ordered, and Daniel's reputation collapsed overnight. Friends disappeared, business relationships vanished, people learned the truth, the real truth, the truth he had tried so desperately to hide. But karma wasn't finished. Several weeks later, another surprise emerged. Emily filed for divorce. Apparently, she didn't enjoy standing beside a disgraced fraud. Funny how loyalty disappears when consequences arrive. Daniel lost almost everything. The expensive cars, the lifestyle, the image, gone. Yet none of that brought me satisfaction. You know what did? The phone call. 6 months later, late evening, unknown number. I answered. Silence. Then a voice. Mom? Daniel. I closed my eyes. He sounded broken, older, smaller. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he whispered something. I'm sorry. I waited. Years of memories flooded through me. First steps, birthdays, school plays, family vacations, a lifetime. Then another memory, dead weight. I'm sorry. 2 simple words, but some wounds are deeper than apologies. I forgive you, I said softly, and I meant it. Forgiveness wasn't for him, it was for me. But forgiveness is not the same thing as trust, and trust never returned. A year later, I moved into a beautiful home overlooking a lake, not because I needed luxury, because I wanted peace, real peace, the kind I had been denied for years. I planted flowers, joined community groups, made friends, started living again. One morning, while drinking coffee on my porch, I watched sunlight dance across the water. Birds drifted above the lake. The air smelled like spring, and for the first time in years, I felt free. Not rich, not victorious, free. Because freedom isn't having money. Freedom isn't winning in court. Freedom is waking up without fear, without manipulation, without people who only love you when they need something. Sometimes I think about Daniel. Sometimes I wonder where things went wrong. Maybe greed changed him. Maybe pride did. Maybe he simply forgot the sacrifices behind the life he inherited. I'll never know, but I do know this. Growing old does not make you worthless. Wrinkles are not weakness. Gray hair is not ignorance. And kindness is not permission for abuse. The day my son called me dead weight, he thought he was describing me. He was wrong. The truth was much simpler. I was never the burden. I was the foundation he stood on his entire life, and the moment he tried to destroy it, everything he built came crashing down. I lost a son that day, but I found something far more valuable: my dignity, my strength, and myself. And nobody will ever take those from me again.